Hello, everyone. Welcome inside the Red Earth Production Studios for another edition of YBMcast with Matt way over there and Brian. And as always, we are joined by our good buddy from PBR, Missouri, Kevin Moulder. Kevin, how you doing, man?
Doing great. How about you guys?
Doing good.
And to my right, we have Coach Tony Perkins from Francis Howell joining us on the program. Matt, what's been going on? You got some big news. You got to share it with us, bro. You're growing.
He just throws me under the table.
No, I'm not throwing you under the table.
We're not here to talk about me. We're here to talk about Coach P.
No, we got to do that. Come on, man.
Yeah, we announced it yesterday.
Yeah,
that we will be in Springfield in the fall.
Very good.
So
very good.
It's been happening over the last 6-7 months, but just announced it yesterday. So that's good.
Congratulations. Continue to grow your
Thank you.
program. I think that's a good thing, man.
Well, thank you.
All right, Coach. As always, folks, we're recording this on Wednesday. So last night, just your thoughts on opening weekend. GAC, you had a tough game against Howell Central.
Yeah, they're a tough team. They're a lot better than they have been, and they competed real well. They had a good arm on the mound, and we were up 1-0. It was 0-0 after 3.
Yeah.
So it was a pretty well played game, and then they got a few runs, and then we popped for 6 in the 5th, I believe, and held on for the W.
You can check out the highlights from that. I was got a chance to go out there. We wanted to do it live. We just can't. I did actually see Sean Irwin over there. He goes, yeah, we have trouble streaming our own stuff anyway. So, but I did get some highlights. The highlights are up on the channel. You can go check it out from the game yesterday. I have to apologize to Mr. Jaden Jones, the shortstop for Howell Central. Made the game close. I think gave you a little bit of a heart attack there.
He put it on top of the batting cage.
He did. He hit a bomb. And it was in top of the 7th. They were down 7-4. They got a runner on, and he just crushed it. And the video got corrupt. I'm sorry, Jaden. My bad. It's on me. But it was close. I mean, both pitchers were really going at each other through 4. Rouser was doing well. Fernley was pitching well. And that 5th inning, it seems like they kind of both hit a wall.
Yep, I agree. Probably should have taken Tyler out a little bit earlier. Pivorsky came in, did a great job, for after that. Only gave up the bomb, but he didn't care. He knew we were still winning, so he got the pop fly to end the game. So that was great. I was really proud of both those guys' efforts, to tell you the truth.
Yeah. It's a good opening to the GAC, conference.
It's not easy. It's no game's easy in that conference.
And so your thoughts on some of these kids from these teams there, Kevin?
Well, yeah, we're starting to hit a little bit of a rhythm here with some of the games. And I was out at another GAC battle yesterday. I saw Zumwalt West versus Holt, and another highly competitive game. You had Daniel Whistler going versus Dalton Hosak, and Holt was up 1-0 heading into the 6th inning. And Zumwalt West, Hosak came out of the game through 5 really nice innings for Holt, the sophomore lefty. They went to the bullpen and walked a couple guys, and then Holt laid down 3 successful bunts in a row. And not in a row. It was 3 out of 4 hitters bunted, mixed in with the sac fly, and they finished with 3 runs in the inning. And Zumwalt West hung on to win that one, but that was a good one. And you're starting to get into this conference battles, and like Coach said, it doesn't matter who you're playing. If you're in a conference game, it isn't going to be easy, especially early on, because everyone's kind of juiced and ready to go for those conference openers.
Yeah, Holt and Howell Central remind me of each other because they've got some seniors. They're both kind of scrappy, that type of teams that obviously in your conference, it's different when you're in conference, right? It's kind of It doesn't matter if you're the bottom and the top and you play each other. It's that rivalry that you have. But Holton House Central remind me of each other just because they've got some seniors. They've got kids that have played together in the summers. They've played together during high school. It's kind of their last hurrah. They could be tricky down the road when you get into playoffs. It's not a team that you would just say, hey, this is a gimme game. You can't take him for granted. As he said, he had a tough game yesterday against House Central, and then Holt and Zumwalt West had a good game yesterday. So, the record may not show it one way or the other by the end of the year, but if you look at House Central, we were talking about them earlier. They beat Troy. Yeah. They beat Lafayette.
That's some quality wins in that Midwest Classic.
Yeah. Yeah. And then we were looking at Holt earlier, and, they beat some good teams. They lost to some good teams, same situation. So,
and they got good arms, right? They have good arms coming out.
Well, I think a D2 arm threw against you yesterday, right?
Umsel.
Yeah. Umsel, yeah.
So, and Holt's got some of those same type of players. So they're going to go out and give it. And they got innings yesterday, correct? Kevin?
I'm sorry?
Those Holt pitchers, they got innings yesterday, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That sophomore left-hander's good. They got 2 good left-handers, and then they got another left-hander named Nolan Folks that's done a good job for them, and a couple senior positional players. So, yeah, they're going to be – they've proven to be pretty competitive and tough so far this year.
We're kind of seeing that there's a ton of lefties in the conference, so we're having to prepare for that.
Is that kind of unique that happens from time to time, Coach?
I think this year's more than I've ever seen, to tell you the truth. Mm-hmm. I mean, quality lefties, like, Coach is saying. I mean, everybody's got one. I mean, I got one going today, but there's other ones out there. It seems like every team's got a left-hander that's quality.
And, I was looking at the outfield for Francis Howell Central yesterday, and all 3 of them were left-handers. All 3 of them were lefties.
Yep.
So I'm sure those guys are probably going to throw on the mound at some point, right? And the center fielder did. He's the guy that came in after Fernley.
Mm-hmm. They're going to throw probably Rubel today. He's lefty.
Yeah. So
82, 84, I think. I don't know. We'll find out.
I mean, if you're lefty, we always had the mindset, if you're left-handed and you can throw a strike, bring it on. Come on, we're good. We'll take you.
Yep.
You may throw 2 innings and come out. You may throw 1 inning and come out, but there's a reason why they have the crafty lefties in the bullpen for the MLB, and they play for 25 years.
If you're left-handed and you got a pulse, you got a chance.
Yep.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm really interested to see how these things continue, and what continues to come out of these matchups, because I think it's going to be just, it may not be so fun for you sometimes, but it's going to be fun for us.
It's not fun at all. It's hard. I'm watching all that yesterday, and it was just an entertaining ball game because, it's high school baseball. There are kids that make the mistakes at times, and you have that. I mean, as you said, Rouser, he's cruising, and I mean, he walked the bases loaded. That's what got you into trouble. Mm-hmm. And so all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, you're in this situation where he has just been dealing. And I'm like, okay, but it happens. What are you going to do? It's high school baseball. He settled a little bit, and then the guy coming out of the bullpen really did a nice job. Evan Pivowarski, yeah. I mean, it's when they start struggling, it's time to go to the next guy.
Don't wait, right, Coach?
It's to make sure it's the right time, not too late.
Oh, mercy sakes. I think it's interesting here, too, that Zumwalt South got a win right out the gate against Francis Howell North. That was a close game there as well. Liberty beating Washington right out the gate.
Seth Bennett probably through that game, I would say.
I would imagine.
He did.
Hopefully they'll get their ship righted. They've had a struggle. We've talked about Liberty and their struggles. But they come out with a district win right off the top there. And then looking at Timberland, here you go, 3-2 over Troy Buchanan, another tight ball game. Is this what we're going to see this year with the GAC South, the GAC North, Central? Guys, thoughts?
I think it could be. Going in before even the season started, we were saying that we don't think there was going to be a bunch of runs scored in games.
Mm-hmm.
So we really concentrate on defense. When your defense stinks, you're going to lose. That happens all the time. You just got to be prepared for low scoring games. I mean, when it was 1-0, I thought that might be the final yesterday, the way things were going, but it didn't end up that way.
Right.
But if you get hot and you're hitting, it makes things a lot easier.
Well, I mean, look at the arms that are in the conference.
Exactly.
It's arm heavy. So I think, as Coach said, going in, I think everybody kind of had that feeling. And if you go back to when Kevin and Brian and I, when we were discussing the conference, it was who can score runs.
Yeah, but
I mean, that's what we were saying. We were saying whoever scores runs is probably going to win the conference because everybody's got arms and everybody has the defense for the most part is fine.
Right.
Outside of a game or an inning here and there where, hey, you can say if their defense fell apart. But I think for this conference, as Coach is saying, it's arm heavy, as we've said in the past, and who can score runs is going to be the one that can probably distance themselves. And then when I say score runs consistently, have a good 2-3 weeks where it's like, hey, we can put up 6-7 runs.
Yeah, I don't think this year that anybody's going to clean the slate.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think I mentioned it in one of the other shows. I think, you could conceivably have 3 losses in the conference and still tie for the championship. And I think that we all just beat each other up. I mean, you're battle tested once you get through your conference schedule. And then you go rolling the weekend and playing teams and go from there. See what you got left.
It's the SEC of Missouri high school baseball.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not so sure you're not wrong there, man.
It's
I know,
close.
no disrespect.
The Kansas City has the Liberty North. Like that
Right.
conference is loaded too.
And yeah, no disrespect to the West, as far as that's concerned. I don't want to. But, I mean, I think the balance of power, you're talking Kansas City, St. Louis right now. I want to see what happens down south with some of those schools with the Nixa, the Kickapoo. Jackson down south here, But I put Jackson kind of in our area.
We're going to throw Rockbridge in there too.
Rockbridge?
Mm-hmm.
There you go. So, I mean, it's spread out. And Kevin, to your point, you saw a lot of stuff. Let's check in on the Midwest Classic here and what you saw, because I saw Lindbergh. They could swing the bat, but they struggled. That was one of the things I think they struggled on the mound and defensively. They could swing it, but that's what I saw. Your thoughts from some of the teams you saw this past weekend?
Well, that was a great event, and Lindbergh specifically. They kind of did this last year. They were a preseason top 10 team, stumbled last year, and then by the end of the year, they ended up finishing really strong and lost in the district championship to CBC in a great game. This year, they started out okay. They won some games early, and then they've hit the skids here recently. But all the pieces are there for them to have a successful season. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them right the ship at the Midwest Classic specifically. It's always a strong event. I got to see Blue Springs South a couple times, and really, really strong team.
Oh boy.
They got some depth on the mound. They got some real arms on the mound.
Mm-hmm.
And I like their positional players too. And I know Coach played them. And I think Zumwalt West ended up winning that tournament. And, a strong team. Got to see them yesterday as well. And, both those teams did are really strong programs.
Did you get to see the Zumwalt West Blue Springs South game on Saturday?
I did not see the championship, no.
Yeah.
Was Blue Springs just out of arms, or what happened? Because it got pretty lopsided. Is that what happened?
I think
In
so.
the semi, they threw out Tommy Lepore.
Uh-huh.
He's going to South Carolina. He's 93. That dude was throwing a splitter and a slider on the dish, and it was just unfair.
That splitter was nasty.
Yeah,
I saw that game.
He's just a specimen.
I think he's going to
South Carolina.
Cincinnati.
Oh, Cincinnati.
Cincinnati.
Right. I'm wrong.
He's
I'm
going
wrong.
to Cincinnati.
Yeah. And Ben Bear is a good friend of mine, the coach over there. That's most of the guys in Midwest Classic are camp rats, and we hang out in each other's rooms and talking baseball all the time. But he had told me after Tommy that he had nothing left. So that's basically what happened. He was throwing his second baseman, and and Zuma West was swinging it. They're putting runs up, so they deserved it, and they were back-to-back champions. They earned it, and that's something to say. I told my guys that if you look through the history of the Midwest Classic, the team that wins it usually pops up in the Final Four somewhere.
And watching that game against you guys in Blue Spring South, he was pitching well. I think a couple of mistakes here or there kind of helped them get a little ahead of you there. But you guys didn't fall down. I mean, it was a 9-7 ball game. You kept battling.
Yeah, we competed. I was proud of my kids. I wasn't happy with them in the beginning, but at the end they came back and competed, and that's all a coach can ask for.
And that kid on the mound, oh my gosh. I hadn't
best guy I've seen all year.
Wow.
Right.
Yeah. That Tommy. Yeah.
Yeah. He's a good arm.
First year he's been healthy, what coach told me.
And you know what was great? I'm sorry, I can't, because this stuff is fun to me. Between innings, you guys are playing the music, and he's out there, he's warming up, and he's out there singing the songs. He's like bouncing, singing, throw a pitch, come back. It was a crack, man.
Yeah, he's a live wire.
He was enjoying himself.
He was. I wasn't enjoying it, but he was.
So big shout out to that kid, Tommy. It was fun to watch.
Yeah, UC's getting a good arm with him.
Yep.
Yeah. And the thing of it is, I love the fact that his fastball command was good. He was around the plate.
93.
And, you said, we've talked about this. I believe that's the struggle sometimes. And I understand, the velocity in there. But I love to see a kid who can throw with velocity and actually command his fastball, throw the baseball where he wants to. To me, that's the impressive part of that is he was consistent. He knew where he was getting that strike, and he was peppering that corner.
The problem that they had, too, in our game in the semi, their catcher came out with an injury in the first inning. And then they used a couple different guys. They kind of struggled holding him, and that's always a concern. If some way you can get on, and then you got a couple wild pitches or pass balls, you're at third base, and then maybe you score on a wild pitch pass ball, and that changes the complexity of the game and puts a lot of pressure on that pitcher, and that's what happened because they were having trouble catching him.
Yeah, the young man that came in. Yeah, he was overmatched.
Yeah.
He was. It's tough. And as an umpire, that the catcher's overmatched by the pitcher, and that can be a little disconcerting.
Widen that strike zone, buddy. Let's get this game over with.
He doesn't have to catch it for it to be a strike.
Let's get out of here before I get hurt.
Yeah.
Oh, man. You brought up Jackson before we started here, Kevin, and they're off to a big start. You've been watching them. Give us your take down there, and we're going to get into some rankings here.
Yeah, they're a team that we obviously knew about on the front end of things. Have a lot of high-end returners, and got a chance to see them versus CBC in a doubleheader this weekend. And Jackson actually handed CBC their first loss in a really good game. I mean, it took an extraordinary effort for it to happen. They have a sophomore right-hander named John Paul Sauer. Through a complete game, and they ended up with a 1-0 victory. And then CBC turned around and beat Jackson fairly soundly the next game. But yeah, Jackson's a really strong team. They got some players, so that's a team that's going to be in the mix for the state Final Four this year. Now they're going to have to go through CBC and Lindbergh, and so it's not a lock, but they're one of the better teams in the state for sure. And I've talked about that with you guys, I think, on the show before. That is, for my vote, that's my favorite place to watch a game in the state of Missouri. I think they get it right from an atmosphere standpoint. The town gets out behind it, cool venue, and they do a good job with their game day experience, and the town gets out and supports their team there in Jackson. So they're going to be a handful, and certainly one of the better teams in the state.
Very good.
How deep are they on the mound? Do you know off the top of your head? Obviously, they've got somebody to beat CBC, but outside of him,
they have a junior named Caden Drum that did a really nice job for him to start out game 2, and then CBC kind of got to him a little bit. They are down a lefty, Will Richardson, who's committed to or signed with Parkland, a senior. He's out for the year with Tommy John. So that is a blow for them that hurts their depth a little. And then one of their big bats who coached them at the future games, Caden Bogenpool, has been up to 92 this spring on the mound as well, and they kind of use him, out of the bullpen. So they do have some arms, to go with a pretty balanced offensive attack.
Well, they got a couple young ones too. If you're talking about a 23 and a 24, which obviously they'll be back.
Unless they want to leave school early.
They should be around here too.
Yeah.
I don't think – I'm just saying. No, I'm kidding.
Well, that's happened. Albert Pujols.
Yeah. Kevin, let's talk about – you've got your next set of rankings out here, large school top 10. Let's start at the top here, top 3. It's teams that we've – it's not too much of a mystery here. Liberty, CBC, Liberty North.
Yeah, goes unchanged. Each one of those teams has dropped a game or two. Early in the season, everyone does this slightly different. In my opinion, I don't want to overreact to, one loss here or there because they're certainly going to happen. But all 3 of those teams are off to really strong starts. They're racking up wins, and the talent on all 3 of those teams is undeniable, and they're off to strong starts. And so we kept the top 3 the exact same. I think Liberty might be like 10-2 as of ranking time. CBC, I believe, is 7 or 8-1, and Liberty North, I think, is along the lines of 8-1 as well.
Yeah. And you're right in lockstep with the Missouri High School, what is that, Baseball Coaches Association. They got Liberty, CBC, Liberty North. They've got then 4, 5, and they got 4, 5, and 6 basically, but votes tied. You got Nixa, Blue Springs South, and Rockbridge, and you put Jackson, Timberland, Fort Zumwalt West. So Blue Springs and Nixa, you've got it 7 and 8. So there's a little disparity, but I don't think there's much difference between these teams, right?
No, there's not. They're good teams. Obviously, I gave the nod to Jackson with the win over CBC and a strong start. CBC is nationally ranked, so we credited Jackson with that, and then with Zumwalt West winning the really tough, challenging Midwest Classic, and I put them ahead of Blue Springs South because they were both in that along with Howell. So I think out of respect to them winning that tournament, I gave them the nod there. So that was the reasoning. But certainly there'll probably be some changes as we go, down the line.
I can tell you how we do it. We have 8 districts in big schools, and Coach Goff kind of runs the information and shoots out data through all the schools throughout the state. and then 8 guys vote, and we just place them, with 10 being the best, and just number-wise. And
it's a point system, right,
Yeah,
Coach?
yeah. We get probably more input from outstate, than others, just because we got guys in Springfield, we got guys in Kansas City, we got guys in Columbia, we got guys down in the Cape area. I mean, we've got the whole state covered, and everybody, you end up voting on teams you've seen, teams you're comfortable in seeing, so there's a little disparity in that, I'm looking at I'm looking at both of your guys' rankings, there's 3 teams in our conference in the top 10, so I know those guys, but I have not seen Jackson. I know of some of their players because I've coached with them and stuff. I have not seen Nixa, I mean.
And they're undefeated. Nixa's undefeated.
Right, but the problem with that one is, are you playing Class 6 schools every day? That's a question.
They have been, because I've watched Nixa. Nixa challenges. They will play. They go and play. They've put themselves in situations where they're playing good quality competition.
They got a new coach.
From what I've seen so far.
Logan, that's where Logan Hughes
Coach Perkins brings up a great point on that, because and again, everyone has a different spin on this, but I don't worry about a loss for a team. I respect a team that's going to challenge themselves. Like you look at Zumwalt West, Blue Springs, and even Coach's Seat, Francis Howell. You look at what they've gone up against so far. If you drop 2-3 games, hey, you've played the best. What if one team played, CBC, Liberty North, Jackson, Liberty, Timberland, Howell, Blue Springs South, and they're 500? Well, hell, I'd tell you they're doing pretty good. Versus someone that played us 4 plus 5 other Joe Schmoes in 10 rundas every single game. That doesn't tell us too much. So you can appreciate the coaches and the teams that go out and challenge themselves. And you know what? You lose a game, so what? You've played the best, and at least in my rankings, I prefer to weigh that in there.
Yep, no doubt about that.
Yeah, I mean, Nix has played some decent teams. They beat a good Hollister team. They've played Rockbridge, Staley. But again, Kennett. I mean, it's early though, so
I mean,
don't want to mess with Kennett.
So
yeah,
they got some arms.
So there's. I mean, it's like I said, it's early. They played some of those teams early. I think they're really now diving into the kind of the stretch here where a lot of these teams are, as we discussed last week. You're playing 7 games in a week, or you're playing 6 games in a week. So that's where hopefully your depth takes over.
And like you said right there, you're talking about Staley, Hollister, Rockbridge. Those are teams that you've mentioned, Coach. This is who Nix is playing. So they're putting themselves in a position, and they've come out of that unscathed. So, I mean, I think that's a fair assessment.
But honestly, and rankings are great. They're fun for us.
Right.
They're fun for Kevin.
Hey, don't tell our secrets, man.
But when you get to the playoffs, these mean nothing.
Got that right.
Agreed.
I
agree.
Absolutely nothing.
We do rely on a lot of those other people outstate, because when we asked compiling information, it's like, who were their losses to? Who have you beaten? And that's all written down. And you have to trust the guys, outstate, because we don't get the information. They don't have any, stats like we do have, prep stats that we have. It's easy for the people to scout us, just click, 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 and you got every stat we got.
Right.
That's not throughout the state. So we don't know what's going on in other places unless we come across a newspaper article or something like that, or online somewhere.
And that's very real, because I have looked. I mean, STL Sports does a good job, and they're still relying on the coaches to get all that information. But then you start going and looking around the rest of the state, and sometimes, man, it's very difficult.
That's why we have Kevin.
Yes. And that's why it's very difficult to find information and stats on a game, a box score, those types of things. It's just not that readily available at the high school level.
No.
It just isn't.
And it's tough when you get postseason. You say you win your district and you're playing a Nixa or somebody like that. It's like, oh, geez, who do I know that's played them? You know, it doesn't like them. Yeah. It's going to give me some information.
You know? And, you know, to what you're saying about the rankings too, Kevin, you can speak to this. It's like you asked the question earlier, Matt, you know, who's behind that pitcher, that Jackson pitcher? And we've talked about this ad nauseum, and I still think it's the right conversation. When you're talking about these teams, how much depth does somebody have at pitching? Can you win? And the telltale sign is usually in those big time tournaments, right?
Well, yeah, but look at 2 years ago with DeSmet. 3 years ago, however long it's been, when they made their run, when they were under 500 when the playoffs started, they probably wouldn't even be on deck on any of these rankings, right? But they had some really good players, and they got hot, and they made a run. So Coach P's going to hate this, but you get to the playoffs, no one's going to say, hey, Francis Howell is, let's just say they're 500. No one's going to take them lightly because they went 500 during their season. And they're on deck and not in the top 10 of a ranking.
Oh, yeah. I've been in Final Fours with 11 losses.
Yeah. I mean,
but we're battle tested.
Correct. And then you get to the playoffs and you've either played all of these teams before, you've seen these arms.
Nothing's going to wow us.
And it's just.
We've seen Tommy Lepore.
Yeah. And, you know, how much does that go into it as coaches? Kevin, you can speak to this at the collegiate level. You know, you want to see that kid, because if you see him now you're in the playoff, if you get in a regional or something like that, I've seen that kid. We've charted pitches. We know what he's throwing. We can set up a game plan for that, correct?
Oh, yeah. Just put it in play.
That's the nice thing about being in a GAC conference, though, because part of it is, you got to beat the kid, but then sometimes it's like the mystique of it, too. Oh, my God, that guy's going to so-and-so school, or, oh, my goodness, there's a scout here to see that, and then the kids have defeated themselves before the game's even started. You start to become immune to it. If you're in the GAC, you're going to see that. That's called a Tuesday in the GAC. Like, you're going to see some kid that's committed somewhere that's really good, and it just becomes not that big of a deal. Now, you still got to deal with them. You got to put together a good game plan. You got to compete. You got to battle your butt off to go to work, to score off that kid, because no matter what, Daniel Whistler's still good, and whoever you're facing is still good, but at least you won't be intimidated. And that is half the battle, in my opinion. You agree, Coach?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I was just thinking about my guys. There's a couple games last week, Midwest Classic, and we played some teams from different places. And as soon as we get their lineup, the kids are running over to me and like, who's pitching? And all of a sudden the phones come out and they're like, okay, his perfect game ranking is this. His PBR's ranking is here. His velocity on PBR is this. Da, 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 da. I said, oh, thanks for scouting report. Let's go. That happened twice. I'm just laughing. It's great. Information is out there. You just got to find it.
Yeah. We are it's a data-driven sport, right? You're very familiar with this. Kevin's very familiar with this. It's what we do, and the information is there if you can find it. And what does that tell you about an opportunity to, hit against a guy that you haven't seen before? Expecting a, 85-mile-an-hour fastball as opposed to a 92-mile-an-hour fastball.
Yeah, I didn't know about Tommy until the night before. And somebody said, hey, we're seeing a 93 guy. I said, what? So I called Ben up right away. Ben, you got a guy in 93 throwing against me tomorrow. He goes, oh, I don't know. He's going to Cincinnati. I go, that's the guy. Don't stonewall me.
How'd you find out?
Yeah. It's out there.
But I think these rankings, let's take a look at this real quick too, Kevin, because, I like to look at we've got the small school rankings. We didn't even get into Class 5, but let's take a look at the small school stuff here. You got sitting at the top, St. Pius X, Kansas City. I don't know why they call it X when it's a 10. It's a Roman numeral. Come on, man.
Yeah, their coach spoke at one of our clinics one time, and I was introducing him. I said 10, and he didn't like that. Sorry, coach.
That's right,
I didn't
Coach.
know.
St. Pius X, right?
Yeah.
Out of Kansas City. You know what's interesting, though? There's a St. Pius X in Festus as well.
Yeah.
I was confusing the two. So, but there you go. Here's the team that's standing out, though. And I talked about them early on. I thought they had some kids, and that's Southern Boone. I mean,
Great coach.
my goodness.
Ryan Ash, awesome guy. Used to be at Jeff City.
Is that right?
Yep.
What do you think about
Our state championship.
Yep.
what do you think about have you heard anything, seen much of them, Kevin, or just kind of seeing the record there and who they've played?
Record, who they've played. I'm obviously familiar with Coach Ash and their program. That's a real, they play a strong competition. The small school rankings is extremely challenging to do. Because especially at this level, some like Kennett, they have 3 losses. Well, they've played teams that are in the top 10 rankings of the large school. So they go out and they play a big boy schedule. And then others will go out and it's not a fault, but they'll play some lesser competition and run up a gaudy record. So in the small school rankings, especially, you'll see some team that might be 20-0 and another team that's 12-6, but the team that's 12-6 might have played Francis Howell, Staley, and Liberty and CBC. So you it is tougher to do the small school rankings. But the teams at the top here are really strong. And, we've already talked about Hollister once. Springfield Catholic is a really strong team. They moved down to 3A, I noticed. And St. Pius just moved up to 4A. St. Pius won the 3A state championship last year. So it's going to be interesting. We're going to get to see those teams battle off in the postseason. Now Kennett will have to deal with St. Pius as well, and Valley Catholic has a good win this year already. So it's the St. Louis Patriots. I know that I don't think Misha recognizes them in their state rankings, but they won the homeschool World Series last year, and they play a pretty competitive schedule, and they've done really well as well. So it is something interesting to keep an eye on.
We're going to have to, we're going to finish up here real quick. We're going to have to say bye to Coach. He's got to jump off the set.
I do. Sorry.
Coach, appreciate
Sorry.
you.
Good seeing you
We
guys.
Good luck
appreciate you
today.
jumping in.
Thanks, Kev. We'll see you around.
Good luck, Coach.
Thanks.
Coach, thanks for coming in,
You're
man.
welcome.
We'll see you.
You bet. See you guys. See you.
Where's he going?
Got an
I'm joking.
appointment. He's busy, man. He's a busy man.
I'm joking.
Got to write a lineup for today.
He had his lineup written 5 days ago. What are you talking about?
And just looking at the Missouri State High School rankings that Coach sent out, they've got Kennett number 1. To your point, the coaches poll here ranks Kennett number 1 over Southern Boone with a 4-3 record. So that's directly to what you were talking about there, Kevin.
Yep.
So, you're looking at Logan, Rogersville, still there, Hollister. This is from the Missouri State High School Coaches Association. St. Pius is at number 5. Fatima, I'm going to say it correctly, 6-2. And here's another one. They have Blair Oaks ranked number 8 with a 2-5 record. But Blair Oaks goes and plays competition.
Right.
So there you go. And that speaks directly to what you're talking about with these small schools and the difficulty. You got on deck, Kevin, you got Eureka, Rockbridge, Kickapoo, Parkway West, Willard. I think Willard's off to a big start again. I think they're going to be very difficult. Just looking at, they were in the Game 7 tournament. Their 12U team was in the Game 7 tournament down in Branson this past weekend. They won that all. So, they got to 12. They got their program working, man.
Oh, they definitely do there. And if you go to that on deck, it kind of shows you the depth of the state of Missouri large schools, the 5 and the 6A. Because I think really highly of Eureka, Rockbridge, Kickapoo, Parkway West, Willard, Ray-Pec. Lindbergh was up at the top early, and Staley. Parkway Central is off to a pretty solid start. They're a team to keep an eye on. So there's definitely some strong schools right there. That next group of 10, 11 schools is pretty stout as well.
And I saw not Hickman, but Seckman. I saw Seckman in the Troy Classic, and I thought they were impressive. They got some kids that can swing the bats, good athletes. I don't know the depth of their pitching, but they're off to a pretty good start there. You got them number 10 there at the bottom. And but I think Seckman's going to be tough.
Yeah, that 10 spot's always the toughest one every week. You try to jam one extra team in there. And Seckman was a team that honestly wasn't on my radar and has come on and done really well early in the season and has some quality wins and performed really well in that Troy tournament. So, it's going to be fun to follow them moving forward here.
So, Kevin, when you do your on deck, is that just in random order? Or is that technically your 11 through 20?
It's in rough order. It's not necessarily perfect, but like Eureka would be the team that just missed out on being in the top 10.
Okay. Because it's kind of like also receiving votes.
Yes,
thing,
yeah.
Right?
If you're towards the front of the on deck, that means you're
receiving your votes are high. Right. Gotcha.
Yeah.
And Vianney, Parkway South probably had a couple votes. I get it. Yep.
Yes.
And in the small school down there, on deck, you got St. Dominic, St. Charles West. From our area, there's a lot of stuff outside of the, you got John Burroughs off to a good start. So talk a little bit about that there.
Yeah, obviously they came out on a tear this year to start out. You get a lot of teams outside the St. Louis and Kansas City area in the small school rankings, obviously. One team that's caught my eye is St. Dominic's. They had a great out-of-state win playing over at GCS ballpark. They beat Brybruff Jesuit out of Indianapolis, which is, I don't think they're quite as good as CBC, but it'd be like beating CBC of Indianapolis. So they beat a large school, private Jesuit school over there. So that was a really nice win for them last week. And they're doing good things. Grant Richards is back healthy. For them, the senior committed to signed with Coastal Carolina, and is doing, having a big year, and they got some depth. So St. Dominic's is going to be a team to keep an eye on. And we often talked about St. Charles West, obviously, and in Newell there. So we got our eye on them, and Borgia is another good local team that is a strong program year in, year out. So there's definitely some programs that can play at that small school level.
Yeah, I think Dominic's, with Grant being back, because I think at the beginning, mistake me if I'm wrong, they were using him more of a closing role because he was injured last year. And I don't know if that's going to continue. I have no idea. But the fact that he's even on the team playing is a huge bonus for them with the kid with that much talent.
Yeah.
So they were one of the ones prior that I was interested to see how this played out, because there's a lot of kids at that school now. I wouldn't be shocked if they start to move up a class as we progress here.
I agree. They're growing, right?
Yeah.
They just built a new addition on over there.
Yeah.
And it's a school.
So they're going to have some kids coming through that could be.
I think they're trying to get some of those kids that from this area, from the St. Charles County, that are going to CBC, staying.
That are going to DeSmet, the CBCs, the Chaminades, to get them to stay in. Yeah.
In county.
Correct.
And I think they're well on their way. I think that's a possibility. I really do.
That makes sense. You would imagine over the next 5 or so years that you could easily see them going up 1, even 2 classes as their enrollment, and it would make sense for there to be a larger Jesuit high school in the St. Charles area that becomes a dominant force on the athletic field, like there is with CBC, Vianney, Chaminade, SLU, DeSmet.
Correct. The only downside to St.
happen.
Dominic is their setup is kind of like DeSmet when you try to get in and out of that place. So
Yeah, it's not
it's
fun.
not good. And either is DeSmet. I mean, it's pretty much one way in, one way out, buddy. Which way you going?
I've umpired a lot of games over there at Dominic, and man, that foul ball across the street and the driver's by, it's kind of tough too, man.
It's
It's a little dangerous. You're driving along, and all I can think about is all of a sudden a foul ball
if you
in
ever
the
try to get
windshield.
into Dominic or DeSmet during what I call the rush hour of kids leaving,
Yeah.
it is. It's bad. CBC's probably the exact same. I've just never gone there while that was happening.
Right.
So
Guys, good stuff. It's a lot of good baseball coming to GAC now. We wanted to do some of these live, and I've got the highlights. I was able to get out yesterday. It was fun because I was able to get some good shots. I was up on top of my van, made my makeshift studio. Was up on top of the van shooting video, and we're hoping still to get out. We've got some opportunities. We're hoping to get out at a West event. There's enough bandwidth there to do a live, but we still are working on some other opportunities there, and so hopefully we're going to get some live baseball with the GAC in the next few weeks. It may happen as early as the first one, April 19th. It's Fort Zumwalt South and Fort Zumwalt East. That we've got some opportunities there with those teams, and I think that's going to be a good one. South is playing well. Fort Zumwalt East is playing well. I think that's traditional rivalry should be a heck of a game. And next week, we're hoping that I got to pull my calendar here real quick. GAC game of the week. I do have it on my calendar. There it is. And it is Fort Zumwalt West playing Troy. And it is at Fort Zumwalt West. So we're hoping to get the cameras, do some live stuff out there. And I think that'll be an interesting ball game. Fort Zumwalt West is on a roll. Troy is a solid ball club. Your thoughts on that game coming up next week, guys?
go ahead, Kevin.
Well, that's one where that's kind of a huge. It's big for both teams, but I'd say it's even bigger for Troy. Zumwalt West has established themselves. They're off to a great start. Obviously, winning the Midwest Classic and having the run they did last season. It's one of those games where it's like, okay, I have some good feelings about Troy and the kids that they have on that team. Now you kind of got to do it. And this will be a big opportunity for them. You're not necessarily saying, hey, you have to sweep, but can you split that series versus Zumwalt West and show that you're capable of competing at the top end of the GAC? That's kind of what I'll be looking for. Can they hang with the top end of the conference here and kind of crack their way into things?
Yeah, I mean, it's a game for them, as Kevin was saying, that for Troy, that kind of put them on the map, so to speak. And I think a confidence builder for the players and the team. I mean, and Zumwalt West hasn't skipped a beat. I mean, they're picking up right where they left off last year, and they're full steam ahead. So,
since they went since the Troy Classic, and I think they come out of that 2-3 or something like that. 1-2, something. Yeah, 1-2. Excuse me. They were 1-2 coming out of that tournament. They have rolled. They haven't lost a game since. They are like a 9-game winning streak. And I've seen them now 3 times. I've seen West play 3 times, and they've got great depth. They had a kid pitching the other day against Lafayette, Carson Clark, who I never heard of. And I was talking to one of the coaches there at the Midwest Classic. We were sitting watching Blue Springs. They were scouting. We were chatting up. And he says, Carson's a guy we've, put out there. He's good for getting some innings, and he pitched really well. It's not one of their main guys. But, when you're playing at that level, you need one of those guys to step up. Right, guys?
Yeah, absolutely. And then I go back to the game I saw yesterday with them. They only scored an inning, and they didn't do it with the middle of the lineup. Their end of the lineup was the part of the lineup that produced those 3 runs. So I think that says a lot. Like, sometimes you got to rely on, hey, when the big boys come around, you got to have the production. But if that's how it is all season, you're going to drop some games, because there's going to be games when Goldschmidt and Arenado and those guys don't hit. They're going to go 0 for 4 occasionally. But when the bottom of the lineup can pick you up, and that's exactly what happened yesterday with Zumwalt West, they found a way to win with the bottom of the lineup producing 3 runs and winning a tough game when a lefty, Dalton Hosack, threw a great game. And, they weathered the storm. They didn't beat him, but they got him out by the end of the 5th, and they scored in the 6th and walked away with a win. So to me, that kind of shows you the resolve and why Zumwalt West is where they're at right now. They're doing things to win games beyond, hey, they got a good player in Daniel Whistler, and he's just going to carry us all the way. Yeah, they do, but they're a team, and they can beat you in multiple different ways.
And I believe, if I'm looking at the calendar correctly, I believe we got Zumwalt West and Timberland on April 26th. Oh,
that'll be a fun one.
Right? That Tuesday, you get Whistler and Hackman on the mound. There's some,
yeah.
And just in this right now, that's, you talk about, that's what, 3 weeks? That's a huge game right there with these teams as they're rolling. I'm looking forward to the season. I think it's here. The conference, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So we got some good stuff, and we're hoping to. And that one there, we should be able to bring live, because it's at West, and that's one of the venues that we have found we have enough bandwidth to stream the game. So we're looking forward to being out at, I know that's kind of tough on some of the others, but, that's what we're doing.
That's what it is.
Right?
Exciting.
It'll be fun. And we're going to get out there and have some fun with these games and look at some of these players. So, guys, final thoughts from the first go around with the GAC conference.
No, we're excited to actually start getting some of these matchups and seeing these guys throw against each other.
Yeah. Kevin?
Yeah, it'll be fun to see what happens today, game 2 of the series, so to say, today. And, and we're probably like a week to 10 days away from pitchers being fully built up, where you'll see guys maybe start throwing some CGs. And so we're about to be into the thick of it, and starting to get a pretty good handle of who some of these teams are over the next week to 10 days, I'd say. So it's going to be fun.
Very good. Very good. All right. Well, there you go, folks. We got finish that up for you. We got make sure you can go check the scoreboard at Misha's website, Missouri State High School Athletic Association. Check out the scoreboards. Keep up. STL Sports does a great job with stats and things like that, information. I'm starting to put a blog out with the standings at the end of each week for the GAC, keeping up on those things. You can check out Kevin Moulder. Follow Kevin Moulder at PBR Missouri. He's got some great stuff out there. You can also check out, go to the Prep Baseball Report, go to the state of Missouri. He's got the rankings there. You can check those things out. A lot of great stuff, a lot of good information. Stay up to date. GAC baseball is really good. The state, Missouri State baseball is really good. Follow it, check it out. We're hoping for a really good season, culminating in the state championships again, right?
That's right.
Ta-da! Hopefully, we won't play it like 1 o'clock in the morning this year. We'll see. Never can tell. But anyway, guys, thanks a lot. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. Remember, hit that subscribe button. Hit the dinger, because that's what we do. We hit dingers. And everybody, have a great day in the Lord. All you pitchers, keep throwing strikes. And you hitters,
Hit them where they ain't.
good advice. And we'll see you next time.